Welcome to Season 3 of Heart of the Gulch. On today's episode, we sit down with Ward Guenther, owner, host, and operator of Nashville's longest-running songwriters round, Whiskey Jam. In today's Walk the Line episode, Ward gives us an inside look at the Whiskey Jam headquarters, preps for his show on Apple Music, The Ward Guenther Show, and then we watch him get ready for his 800th Whiskey Jam located in Winter's Bar and Grill in Midtown. We are in the Heart of the Gulch. My name is Tony Mendoza, your host, and today, well, we have a hell of an entrepreneur. Not only a hell of an entrepreneur, an amazing husband, an amazing father, and then from there also a songwriter. Also from there, man, you may have seen this person slanging out drinks in Tin Roof a while back, and now he has an amazing, one of the OGs of Nashville's Ride-Arounds. And you can find them hitting the stage at Winners in Midtown every Monday and Thursday. Believe me, if you don't know him, I'm sure someone famous definitely knows him. And we got the one and only Ward Guenther in the building, Whiskey Jam CEO and founder. I know it's early in the morning.
No, it's great. They're lively.
Oh, man, I appreciate it. Well, Ward, like I said, man, thank you for coming to the Heart of the Gulch because you know how it is. You've been here. How long have you lived here in Nashville from Memphis?
20 years this August.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I moved here in 2003. The day I got to town, I took the exit to get to my apartment or my house where I was going to be living, and they were pulling the tarp off of the roundabout statue, the big statue with all the naked people.
Yeah, the weird thing.
Yeah. And so that's how long I've been. Like, they were literally, the crane was pulling that off, and I was just pulled up the street and saw it. I was like, okay, what have I gotten into? You know, what is this town? They've got a statue erected of people chasing a golden ring, like climbing on top of each other to get to this golden ring. And yeah, it's kind of been the symbol of my arrival.
I mean, well, yeah. I mean, not only that. I mean, you talk about Music Row is right there, right? So you talk about people trying to chase the ring.
Oh, right.
I mean, it kind of makes a lot of sense when you look at it from that perspective. But Memphis, Tennessee. So where in Memphis? I've traveled to Memphis a few times. Where in Memphis did you grow up?
I grew up right in the center of the city. Maybe at one point in time might be considered kind of like the borderline of East Memphis, but as Memphis grew out to Germantown and Cordova and everywhere else out there, we were just right in the middle, off of one of the busier streets in town. My dad worked at the University of Memphis. We were close enough he could walk there. I went to White Station High School and really had a great Memphis experience. You know, I feel like it's a great cultural city with a lot of soul, and I really enjoyed growing up there.
When I go back to Memphis, the first thing I always try to do is I always try to pick up some food.
Yeah,
you know I'm going to go there.
If you tell people to stop through, what's your recommendation for?
You're not going to like it.
Yeah?
You're not going to like it.
I don't know.
Okay. So my recommendation for food is the original Corky's.
Okay, dude. We grew up before where the bulk of my life in Memphis. I lived for a few years on Poplar Avenue, and it was maybe 3 miles from the original Corky's on that same street. So we were on the same side of Poplar. Like, you just turn right out of our house and you go for a little while and you get to Corky's. And it was funny because you grow up thinking that's your local barbecue restaurant. And it was the closest thing to us in Memphis, the barbecue mecca. And then as we grew up, they didn't get fancy. They just started getting popular, and they started putting the sign up that said FedEx Corky's anywhere in the world. And you're like, this is a big deal. People worldwide want to get this stuff. But man, when you grow up thinking that's normal, it spoils you for the rest of your life. Oh. And so, yeah, the original Corky's is a fantastic choice.
I appreciate that because I was kind of nervous about saying where I get my. Now I want to know, where do you recommend for the people that are watching this today to get their barbecue whenever they get to Memphis?
I think I always say 3 things. Original Corky's, just because it is pure. It's like the smoke is baked into the actual wood of the building at this point. You know, it's a staple. But they focus more on, I like their wet ribs.
Yes, I like their dry ribs.
Do you? In the dry world, I tell people go to Rendezvous downtown, which is also a really cool experience. It's incredibly fast. It's family owned. It takes a little while to get seated, but once you sit, you're 5 minutes from food. It's crazy. You say, I want 2 racks of ribs, whatever, and sandwiches, this and that and the other, and it's coming out. So there's serving so much volume. It's not like they have to prepare it to order. They know that they're going to have thousands of people eating their barbecue that day. The one thing I haven't tried there, they have a shrimp dish, barbecue shrimp, but you have to order it 24 hours in advance.
I'm always nervous when it comes to seafood anywhere in Tennessee. That's just me personally.
Well, I hope that the 24-hour in advance allows them to maybe get it flown in. Who knows?
There you go.
But yeah, that's my picks.
Well, I appreciate those picks because I'm actually going to use those picks, by the way. And not only that, so we're talking about tearing down. That's a great segue to Nashville.
Yeah.
Because when you came into Nashville 20 years ago, talk about tearing down. Talk about building up and bringing it up from the ground, huh?
Right.
I mean,
where we sit right here. Golly.
I know, tell me about it. We're not going to tell people where the Heart of the Gold Studios is, but when I first came in here, there wasn't any of this hoopla around other than the gym that I go to. Yeah. And that was really it. And the gym probably wasn't even, it was World Gym for a long time.
The gym sits on a spot where there used to be a strip club, and I think it was in a church. Like, it was a church turned strip club. This is one of my craziest stories of Nashville, as far as like the songwriter, my songwriter years. Where I worked out there for several years myself, and I was like, I'm working out where the strip club used to be, and they used to have a writer's night in the basement, in the lounge of the strip club. Yeah, my buddy Randall, his girlfriend was a dancer there, and she was like, he was a songwriter. She was like, you should do the songwriter night here because they have them everywhere. So why would they not have it in the lounge of the strip club? And yeah, I was pretty new to town, and at that point in time, I was pretty much always in like khakis and a polo shirt. I'd come from UT. I was very collegiate cowboy. Might have put on like my Justin boots with that getup.
I know what it is, man. I went to A&M, so I can't get rid of any UTs.
Right.
Every time I moved to Nashville, I can't get rid of none of these UTs.
And so that was where we were at that point in time. This just can't even believe that you did a writer's night at a strip club, and now it's been overtaken by Whole Foods and gyms and everything around here. It's nuts.
It's nuts. And not only that is it nuts, because as I was listening to a couple of interviews that you've done, you really go into depth on how different the Nashville scene was when it came to music back then. I think one thing that you brought up was, what was it? The Mafia. Talk about that Mafia, where it was the like an OG songwriters round.
That was, I forget the years it was, probably mid 2000s, when Gretchen Wilson, John Rich, or Big and Rich, Cowboy Troy, 2 Foot Fred, there was a group of creatives that got together and they called themselves the Music Mafia, and it was a weekly event, kind of a get together, a little bit of a jam, but these people were incredibly talented, and you saw the rise of Gretchen Wilson out of there. You know, she was singing the songs that John Rich was writing for her and making her just an overnight sensation. And that was one of the big things that wasn't necessarily an inspiration for what I went to go do, but it was something that was so different in this Nashville space.
It was very unique.
Yeah. I was like, we immediately got compared to that because it was like, you guys are doing something fun and different.
Oh, well, not only that, I mean, before we get into the idea of Whiskey Jam, I'm interested in knowing when you moved to Nashville, what was the draw? What drew you into this city? Gotcha.
I started playing guitar real late in high school, and it was just kind of a hobby. And I couldn't sing at the same time. I always had a hard time. I would keep time with my tongue, and it was just more of a hobby. I enjoyed fingerstyle guitar was kind of what got me into it. And I ended up one summer, I was working at a summer camp. We had a bunch of people playing instruments, different kinds, and we were like, let's start a band. Let's start like a bluegrass band. And everybody got together and we started playing, and nobody would sing. And I was like, maybe I can be this singer because I don't have to worry so much about playing. There was a whole bunch of people around you kind of carrying you. So I started singing then, and man, I just immediately was like, okay, this is the most fun I've ever had. And I figured out it helped me learn how to play and sing at the same time. And from that moment, that summer in college, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And so immediately I was like, I got to move to Nashville. You know, I met people in college whose parents were in the music business, and it was like, it's right here. You know, I grew up in Memphis, went to Knoxville. Nashville's right in the middle. So I went home and lifeguarded for the summer, saved up a little bit of money, came over here and visited one time to try to find a job, and it was just like, I gotta be here. I don't care what job I got. My parents were like, yeah, you can move there as soon as you're employed.
Yes.
They were thinking
big boy job.
They were thinking, yes, big boy job, working at an ad agency. My degree was in advertising. I had a good experience in creative advertising in college. Worked at a great internship, but it didn't pan out, and it was also just zero. I wouldn't have been able to survive on it, honestly. So moved here, started working at restaurants and bars, and immediately just jumped into that scene.
Man, looking at it now, right? Looking years after this, right? Is you're in creative advertising, right? I mean, Think about just even the hat you're wearing. I've seen people wear Whiskey Jam hats. I've seen Whiskey Jam shirts all over the place. Remember, I'm from 2020, so I haven't been here that long, but I can tell you what's been here for a while is the company that you were able to create. And speak about creative advertising, you really killed it from that point of view.
That's been one of those things that just kind of worked out, just magically worked out. I was, as a part of this music event, which has been great through the years just on its own, I've been able to use some of the creative side, and especially with the rise of social media, it's like we don't have to worry about advertising or buying space or anything. It's like you just have the outlet right there. Mm-hmm. And it's been a big part of getting people involved and making them feel welcome.
What was it like downtown? And I remember listening that Demumbrium Street was completely different from what we know today. And for the people, I'm sorry, I haven't talked to y'all. For the people that are watching this that are in Texas, or the few people that are watching this that are in Washington D.C., shout out to y'all, by the way. And when we're talking about Demumbrium is right in between, I guess you would say, the Gulch and Midtown, right where the winners and losers is. Mm-hmm. And you had at the time when you first moved here, or when you were going up in the ranks and learning about everything, what was it? Was Tin Roof right there?
Tin Roof was still where it was. It was the reason that Demumbrium kind of changed. That was just a touristy little street. When they moved in, there was a coffee shop, a music lesson shop, and across the street there was a Shoney's and a everything's $5 souvenir shop, and then the stuff up the street had been a country music wax museum at one point in time. So it was like really a kind of a corny part of town. It was off Broadway, and Broadway wasn't even popular at that point.
It was just a place where people would play music and have a good night out, mm-hmm. right? And then as time has grown, as we've grown, right, these areas, Demumbrium, Broadway, you name it, in Nashville has just turned into, now the scene.
Right. You see one place doing well, the other place pops up, and then it's like everybody just starts smelling the blood and water. It's like, oh my gosh, we can blow up here. And, there was we were trying to pin it down the other day. I forget who I was talking to, these moments when things change, these turning points, and you look at Broadway, and a lot of the bars that are there now were still there in mm-hmm. the early 2000s, but the Honky Tonk Central was one of the first. It was a 3-story on the corner of 4th and Broadway, the busiest intersection in the state, and it was an old Irish pub called Shawnee that had shut down right after I got to town. And so they turned that in after probably 3 or 4 years of nothing into this 3-story honky tonk with multiple levels of stages. And it was this massive thing. And you're like, how can that sustain itself? And then you started hearing the rumors that it's the first bar that were making $1 million a month. And it was like $1 million a month, which now is commonplace at multiple bars downtown. But as soon as people started hearing about that and thinking in those terms, it just honestly started like attracting itself, and nothing attracts a crowd like a crowd. And it was like, okay, from an appreciation of music standpoint, from a business owner standpoint, people are like, man, you can party downtown, you can get your music heard, you can have a rowdy good time. And the businesses are like, man, you can make money, $12 million a year. What are you talking about? So that was one of those turning points, but it was a different beast,
Yeah, well, I mean,
18 years ago.
Talking about a turning point. So, am I correct that when you were developing the idea of Whiskey Jam, mm-hmm. right? You were in, was it Losers with just a group of buddies and just drinking and just thinking about it, or was it Winners? Pretty
much. We were. It was kind of several different situations that led to the thing that we've been doing now for almost 13 years. But I was hanging out every day at Losers with a buddy of mine named Josh Hogue, he was a pop artist that grew up in Nashville, around country music was kind of like, had done a little run in pop, had met a lot of people out there, knew, had worked, I think, in LA and in Nashville in the music businesses and different offices of like DreamWorks at the mailroom, whatever it might be.
Building his fan base, basically, in a way.
And just getting experience, like getting to know the artists that he would be writing with. So we were both just kind of floating around through life at that point. He's like, I kind of want to be an artist. And I was like, I kind of want to be a songwriter, maybe an artist. You never know. But we spent more of our time hanging out at Losers than working on our craft, which we should have been. And I mean, thank goodness it worked out the way it did. But like one night, I was hanging out. No, I wasn't hanging out. One of the only nights I wasn't hanging out, I was at my house and some buddies hit me up and said, hey man, you want to go play some music? And if they had said, man, you want to go downtown, or you want to go whatever, go hang out with some girls or whatever, I'd be like, man, no, we do that every night. I'm taking the night off. But the fact that they said, you want to go play some music, I was like, crap. Yeah, I do. I got to do it. This is what I moved here for. So we went and played at the Tin Roof, actually. I was like, there's a couple places I could call, see if we get a pitcher of beer or two to let us just hop up and sing a few songs. So we played for a few hours that night, drank a little bit, and had a blast. And so the next morning I tweeted out and said, thanks everybody for coming to the first ever Whiskey Jam. Just put the words together, because we had a lot of whiskey and we had jammed a bunch of songs. And my buddy Josh, back in the days of Twitter, when like you would get a notification if your friends had tweeted, he immediately texted and said, what is Whiskey Jam? I remember where I was when he sent me the text. I was in a Tin Roof, Cool Springs at like a morning meeting. And he texted, and I was like, what do you mean? What is Whiskey Jam? It's just some words I put together. He goes, that's a really cool name. We should do something called Whiskey Jam. And that was where it was born. So the guy that I was hanging out with all the time in the day at Losers saw that and recognized and he's a great marketing guy too, and just recognized that name had some potential. And we sat down, kind of thought about it, made lists of artists that we knew, musicians that we knew, and songwriters that we knew, and we're like, let's invite all these people together and just provide them with a stage, provide them with instruments, and say, if you want to come in and jam with your buddies, we'll provide the night. And so we ended up, that's when we started doing it Winners. Just I don't even know why we picked Winners instead of continuing at Tin Roof, but I think it was because I was working at Tin Roof as a bartender. I didn't want to just like
put it all together,
spend every day there, you know.
Absolutely, man. First of all, it sounds very collaborative, because one thing when I think about any brand, right, and you can understand this as well, when you think of a brand, and I'm not sure if other people out there think this way, I hold it close to my heart until I'm able to create something with it. Yeah. So like the term Whiskey Jam, when you put it out together and then you realize that it had potential as a name, were you a little nervous telling people like, hey, this could be something? Were you ever nervous or ever concerned of someone running with that one of your creative ideas?
Man, not really. Not at that point in time. I was so young and I guess naive or inexperienced in the business world. I was just more there for the fun, for the creating something new and cool, and that we could kind of have as our own. I never thought that it would turn into anything. Anybody would take it, and thank goodness I don't think anybody saw it at it was a different scene back then. Well, I don't know. I feel like ownership at that point, you could point back to like, this tweet existed here, you know, you're stealing from this, whatever. It was never really concerned, because it was, I saw it as something we were keeping in our close friend group. And it was a couple hundred people that would, you know, the socially active populace in Nashville at that point in time was a few hundred folks. And so it's like, okay, we're just putting this word out to this small little faction of the community.
But it grew.
Yeah.
And then it grew a lot.
Well, the community grew so much. It was like the fight in the early days of like, man, if we can get 100 people out of that 500.
Yeah, because it was only about, I heard you saying that it was only about 500 originally, you know, that would go out looking for this music and go looking for this experience.
Yeah, you had a few different crowds. You had a few different cliques, you know, and you had Midtown, Demumbrian, and downtown. You split them up amongst.
And this is in 2011, right? Ish?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
There was probably more than 500, but in my head, I was like,
that's a good way to think of it.
Yeah, just thinking like that. Like we're trying to attract as many of those people as we can. And it was crazy because if something super cool was going on, everybody could go to it. You know, like that was the place to be. It's not like if something was going on at Whiskey Jam that night and people were like, oh, that's cool. y'all have fun. I'm going to go to this thing over here. Like something else didn't exist. And so as the town has grown, as the crowd has grown, it's been awesome because I don't have to worry so much anymore about like being the
if
only.
one area is packed, you don't have to worry about if your area is going to be packed.
Spread the love. You can share around like on the same street. You know, like, hey, you guys had a really cool event on Monday. Did it affect our crowd? Not really. We have a great show. I'm not worried about it pulling people away from a friend or a competitor.
Whiskey Jam, you now have your friend group. You're realizing that there is an audience for this. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about the challenges it is to create a business from the ground up or start to build the name.
The things that you just don't care about as a creative, you know, as a songwriter, singer that came to Nashville to do those things when we got into Whiskey Jam. And I was like, I got to get a trademark. Like, how do I trademark this name? How do I protect myself? Thank goodness my brother-in-law is an attorney and helped out with that stuff early on and got things in place. I've had different people and partners through the years as managers who have also helped kind of revolutionize that on our side. That was probably the biggest learning curve, just changing my whole attitude to include things that I never really considered in the
it's the business. That's the scary thing about the business world, right? And it's just because they're all among us, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. And what was some of your first Whiskey Jams like? What was that crowd like? What was the experience? Who were the first, inductees? Because at this point, it's 1,000+ artists that you've had on Whiskey Jam. Mm-hmm. Isn't that crazy to think?
It is. Anytime I keep a track of who all's played and the number of shows we're doing, and we're up to like 835 or something.
And pictures too. I've heard that too. You have a book, man. That book of pictures that you probably have could be, there's names from everywhere on that pictures.
It's wild. The video that we've kept over, it's funny because the first 5 or 6 years, we don't have much video except what you had on your cell phone. And there were some great moments and also some good video of some amazing artists like the early days of Maren Morris when she was brand new to town. But there's a lot of stuff we missed because we didn't know what we were watching at the time. I didn't realize that when Casey Musgraves was on stage, she would go on to become Grammy Award-winning Casey Musgraves, and I would have at least maybe snapped a picture, So we went through, Josh and I went through our phones, and we were texting probably 250 people each, just saying, hey, starting a new thing tonight, Whiskey Jam at Winners, a bunch of music, it's free if you want to. I think we had 2 different messages. One we sent to people that didn't play music, and others simply to artists and stuff. And it was so different of an idea that everybody was like, dude, that sounds awesome. Yeah, I'd love to go. I'd love to participate. I'd love to sing a couple. Like the fact that it exists so much everywhere, every night of the week now is crazy to think about, because back then it was like, well, yeah, that sounds awesome. It's not a sit down writer's night where you're passing the guitar around and just like real subdued and quiet. And the writer's night scene was not the most exciting thing. So people were like, heck yeah, we're coming out. And you probably had 300 people that first night. And it was people from Chris Young to, I know Lady A was there that night. The group had come through. Who played that night? Easton Corbin, Love and Theft. And it's funny because at that time, some of those guys were established artists. They had a record out or songs out or whatever. But most everybody was really still young. And those early days, it's funny to look back on it now because you go, holy moly, like Brett Eldridge and Kip Moore would play these writers' nights regularly. And it's like, yeah, because back then they were just, you or I, like.
Exactly. And not only that, it was just there wasn't very many outlets for that to happen. And one thing, as you're telling the story, one thing that's getting me, kind of hyped up here is was it always 3 songs? Was it always 3 songs per set or per person? We
may have figured that out after we started, but I was pretty early on. In the early days, the idea was we'll have so many musicians there that if you wanted to play a song with a band and you didn't have a band, it's like, okay, Eddie can play guitar and Keo can play drums, and somebody in the place can play bass. My buddy Jeff played bass for a long time, and you can hop up and maybe see if y'all can get a song out. So it might have started as just a song a piece, and so it evolved pretty quick. Like, you had people want to come up and play and jam for a long time. It's like, okay, let's keep it to like a sampling for each person. So 3 songs, and man, it's worked out really well, because if you like the music, it's great. It's like a good little teaser. It's like,
teaser,
oh man, I want to go
it.
learn more about this person. But if you don't like it, it's like, just go to the bar, get a drink. By the time you get back, it would be somebody else.
I mean, that's exactly right, because I remember one of my whiskey jam is one thing that in the Nashville community that is synonymous term. I need to figure out how to do some more terms, baby. But it's just, it's one with Nashville at this point.
Yeah.
And especially, and that must be so proud to hear, because you think about every other establishment now has their form of ride arounds, and it's not duplication. It's not trying to be anyone else. It's their own individual spots. But is it amazing to know that when you started this idea, when you created this platform where people can, give those teasers out, those tastes of music.
Yeah.
I mean, is it cool to say that, like, hey, I was one of the first ones in this city to really put on and brand this idea and make it bigger?
I mean, I really feel fortunate that the timing of everything worked out like it did, because we were doing something in town that wasn't very common. The city was changing. We got started right on, like, we kind of straddling a line where we started early enough to where it seems like old Nashville. Everybody's like, oh, I missed those days. But we were, we started in time to enjoy this new supportive community, and I say supportive community, people coming to town and going out and drinking and, wanting to have fun.
Wanting to hear some music.
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of times when I first moved here that I would just find myself on Demonbreum going to Winners and Losers just to listen to some music to get out of the apartment.
Yeah.
And as you notice from the beginning that Nashville's turned into this transplant city where there's so many different types of not only local people that are just trying to find music, but also a lot of different types of styles of music.
Yeah.
I mean, have you noticed that show inside, Whiskey Jam? Have you noticed a different variety of music now because there's so many different transplants coming in?
Oh, and for sure, that's been a big focus of ours from the beginning. Knowing that there was so much cool music in Nashville, we were wanting to take advantage of that and involve as many people as we could. So even from the early days, you could come to Whiskey Jam and see pop music or hip hop music in some cases. Like some of our favorite bands that have come through have been the things that have been outliers or something unique for the night. We've noticed, I feel like the changes that you were asking about through the years as more transplants have come here from other places, you're hearing, I see more of an evolution of influences than styles necessarily. Like the age of the artist and the age of the creative community changing, and they grew up with different influences. They grew up with different platforms on how they consumed music. Some kids that are playing Whiskey Jam don't know the CD era. They don't know the iPod era. They certainly don't know CDs, vinyl, things like that, or cassettes, and that radio world, what everything was in that one place. So it's interesting. You see the influences have changed. It's made it very, I feel like the crowd overall and the scene overall is very diverse, because the further we get and the easier it is to listen to all kinds of different music, you get a really crazy blend, because it's not like you have to go to the store and buy a rap record to listen to it and to sample it, to try it. And you can go around and try a lot of different things and find out what you like. And a lot of these artists that have been coming through the last few years, they're a very unique blend. It's a really interesting patchwork of influences that make these styles that are becoming some of the standards, in the biggest examples possible, in like the Morgan Wallens, who are bringing in all different elements of so many different kinds of music, and it's obvious that it's being accepted on a massive scale.
What's your favorite era? I mean, as you were talking about it, because I'm thinking about how far back I remember, right?
Yeah.
What I remember, I'm lucky enough to have grandparents that had 8 tracks.
Right.
I don't even know if y'all watching this know what an 8-track is. That's such an interesting gadget. But in reality, when I was growing up, it was more... it was the Walkman CDs. So back in the day when you went to Target, you went to the right? Mm-hmm. There's all the CDs. And then if you went to a Walmart, though, you would see some cassettes. Mm-hmm. What's your favorite era of just consuming music?
Man, I really enjoyed cassette tapes. I think when I had cassettes, I really wanted CDs. You know, some of my friends that... whatever, they might have...
You remember the cars? You remember the car radio? You remember cars that did not have any CDs? It was just cassette.
Oh yeah, I mean the first car I had didn't have a radio. I had to have a little boombox in the seat next to me. That's what I learned on, you know, and a cassette boombox. And then as I think I installed a CD player in it. It got stolen a couple times.
That was another thing people don't understand is people that used to steal actual just stereos.
Yeah. But yeah, I think my favorite. I didn't realize how much I enjoyed it at the time because cassettes, you would want to skip to the next song sometimes, and it was just hard. So a lot of times you would listen through a song that you didn't necessarily want to listen to, because I did a lot of yard work around my neighborhood, mowed yards and raked leaves and stuff. And so I remember hours and hours you'd spend in people's yards. Just pop in Pearl Jam and listen to the whole 10 record. And it really forced you to consume bodies of work and listen to a project versus a bunch of shuffled songs.
Exactly. I think that's what's so different now. And that's kind of what you were saying about the evolution, right? Is that musicians today can go into their Spotify and they can get a bluegrass song to a blues song to Morgan Wallen coming up next, right? Yeah. So you're influenced by so many different genres, so many different things that may perk your fancy. Now, I kind of want to ask about just, what were some of the challenges have you ever had a challenging event when you first started or even today? What have been some of the most challenging events that you ever had to deal with?
Honestly, it still is the same as it has always been. And it's kind of just being open to change at any moment. If somebody doesn't show up, or if somebody has to call in sick.
Does that happen where people just don't show up at this point?
No, I think maybe that's happened one time where it was just a miscommunication of some sort. And I was like, where is this person? And then you reach out and they're like, dude, I missed a text or something and didn't see that they said they couldn't be there or whatever it might be. The beauty of Nashville is that you go, who's got a guitar? Who wants to sing 3 songs?
Exactly.
And so it's funny that's the worst problem we ever had.
That's awesome. What do you mean?
Right. The challenges of just dealing in that world. We've been, especially after 2020, we've been very understanding of, hey, I can't be there. I'm sick. Hey, I can't be there. I don't feel comfortable being there. And so it's like, you know what? Whatever. Like we for a long time, we were priding ourselves on never missing a Monday and being the Cal Ripken of live music. I was like, after 2020, forced the hand. It's like, dude, you can't. The streak is broken. You're not the Grand Ole Opry. There's not 100 years of Saturdays that you never missed one. It's like, just do the best you can.
Just do the best you can. And not only that, where's some quick questions real quick. What are some of the coolest places you've ever seen your logo? Man, it's funny. Early on, I saw somebody send a picture from Italy, and they were visiting Italy, and somebody had one of our T-shirts hanging from a clothesline up on a 4th or 5th floor in Venice. Yeah, it was crazy. And it was like unmistakable, like our red T-shirt with the TriStar. And I'm like, how in the world? And I'm thinking, that was probably that person planted. I'm like, you know what? I don't care. Somebody had our stuff, went to Venice, took a picture. But the way that they said it, they're like, no, it was my sister was vacationing over there and she saw it. I'm like, that's crazy. What about largest venue? Largest venue anyone's ever worn a Whiskey Jam shirt or hat?
Oh, wow. I don't know. I probably wouldn't know. Maybe last year, Ernest was wearing some of our hats when he was out with Morgan Wallen. And so you're playing Madison Square Gardens and you see their logo up there. It's like, wow, that's crazy.
I mean, I remember hearing a story about was it Luke Combs? And that just being able, we could go on and on with names, right? I think that's the thing. And some people get tied up to the names of these artists. I'm not here to do that. What I'm here to talk about is your journey and your journey of keeping these moments, because I think that was the coolest thing doing my research about you, man, is that you keep these little moments of when people have played, what they have played, or at least pictures. I mean, what are some of your favorite pictures that you have taken?
I think the one that always comes to mind first is from my viewpoint on stage, just taking a picture, one of those like Today's Office, kind of from behind the microphone, and the microphone's right here and the crowd's kind of scattered. And then right in the front row, wearing a white fishing shirt, is Luke Combs just staring. I wasn't taking a picture of him. He just happened to be there, and it's turned into one of the kind of the best examples of Whiskey Jam. It's like, listen, this is what it was and always has been. It's been artists on stage playing to a room full of tourists, or not tourists, music supporters, appreciators, but also artists. You get a room full of people who are in the front row cheering on their friends when they very well could be on stage doing it themselves. And that speaks a lot to me. Not in the, you never know who's going to be front row at Whiskey Jam.
No, it's because they're looking for that creative juice. I mean, they're looking for being a creative yourself. You understand that just having just being inspired creates creativity.
Right.
So it could be whoever's in front of them, Lady A or whoever, right? They're listening to be inspired, not only because it's their friends, it's because something that their friends are playing that just hypes them up. Yeah.
It's very unique, I feel like, to, and I wouldn't say just our event, but it's very unique in Nashville to have rooms full of creative people that are out appreciating it as much as they are supporting it, as much as they are, not worried about themselves for the moment, which is really cool. Yeah.
What was the pinch me moment of last year in 2022?
Keith Urban pulled up to one of our outdoor shows to rehearse in a Lamborghini, and it was one of the Lamborghini SUVs, and it pulled up and I was like, who in the world's coming here with a Lamborghini SUV at Losers in the parking lot show?
I mean, but they're packed. Let's be honest here. The summer sessions with Whiskey Jam are packed.
Yeah, they're crazy. But this was in the daytime. We were getting ready to rehearse. I didn't know he was coming. And so he gets out, and I was like, it was for the Hardy takeover, the Hicks tape takeover. And I was like, did you for real get Keith Urban to come be a part of this show? And he knew who we were, and he knew what Whiskey Jam was, and he had a blast at the show that night.
It made waves.
Yeah,
in the city.
One was crazy. But that was probably the moment from last year where I was like, what is happening? I always think of celebrity and those kind of upper tiers of things living in different worlds, and
classes, right? Is that what you're assuming too? So people that don't understand, classes are every musician that comes into Nashville have a certain time frame of being with one another ish.
Okay. And even like I feel like Keith Urban's on the next level, being married to Nicole Kidman. This is a different level of stardom, a different level of living. I feel like these people live in a different universe.
They don't live in Nashville, but they do. They live among us.
And so when they show up to your thing and they're like, dude, this is so cool, it brings it kind of tears those little walls down in my brain. I was like, man, this actually is a thing that a lot of people know about. Because, from my perspective, I see all the stuff that goes on, all the places we are, all the places we ship merchandise, all the things we've done. But I'm the guy on stage every Monday and Thursday night at Winter's Bar and Grill, in the same place we've always been, in this little kind of dive sports bar that's grown a lot, but I still see it as this small place. And so that's what I think of Whiskey Jam as. So when you meet or when you hear somebody like, man, I was out on the coast in California the other day and ran into somebody with a Whiskey Jam hat, and we pointed at each other and was like, hey, cool dude. And I think it's a real thing. It's not a created brand that we wanted to take advantage of the tourists or the action we got.
It's not a money grab.
No, and it's nothing inauthentic at all. It's like
almost like a milestone.
Yeah.
A milestone in not only a musician's career, but also a milestones from a local's perspective or a tourist perspective, that they went and they saw something. Okay, well, speaking of that, I have another question, but I'll save it for after crowd noise because speaking about the people, you guys submitted your questions. So you ready to do that?
Oh, yeah, this is awesome.
All right, let's do it.
Ward, what's one whiskey jam event you wish you could go back and relive?
Man. That's a great one. I think we did one show on New Year's Eve one year. I forget. I think it was 2018 into 19. And I just always remember that as being a really cool one. You know, we've done the same show so many times on Monday and Thursday night. There's nothing really that stands out about them. It is always that little time frame. You're on the first night of the week, or you're on the last weeknight before the weekend begins, and so you have those kind of vibes going on. But it just happened to be that New Year's Eve was on a Monday night one year, and I was like, let's do it. You know, usually we would say, let's not mess with it, like everybody's gonna be doing something else, but I was like, let's just ride this one and see how it goes. And we had a bunch of bands play, and then we had like a cover band at the end play up till midnight. And dude, it was so much fun because I didn't know how many people would show up and want to do that kind of an event on a New Year's Eve. But we had a huge crowd, lots of fun. It was a bunch of random bands. Charlotte Sands, though, played that one. It's so funny. She's gone on to become really successful in the pop world. And it came up over the holidays, you know, the kind of time hop, remember this? And I sent it to her. I was like, can you believe that night exists? And she's like, oh my gosh, I would love to go back to that and see it in just the coolness of the moment.
Man, that's amazing. And that's another thing is that it seems like since it's been such not a routine, but it just seems like it's always around, you want to make sure that you're keeping consistency. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So when there is something that breaks the norm, because that answer could have been anywhere. Mm-hmm. It just seems like that is what keeps things so cool in your perspective, is that it has to break the normacy of just, you know, playing on a Monday night, you know?
Oh yeah, for sure. I've never left a show not fulfilled, satisfied. Those two words, I mean, that kind of seals it. And some of those nights might have been because we partied, you know, whatever. It's like you had a good time. But for the most part, it's been just really rewarding musical experiences. And it doesn't mean that the crowd was that massive every time. But in those moments where you might have a small crowd. I'm thinking one recently where the guy that played last had a small crowd in the room, but dude, he spoke to them and he drew everybody in, and nobody was leaving. Anybody that had left through the course of the night, I felt bad for, because you would miss this really intimate, special moment. Is
it cool to see that? Is it, I mean, from your perspective of seeing the Whiskey Jam stage and watching, you know, visitors come and view it, and then there's some artists that just have that connection. Oh, I mean, what is that? How would you describe that look on those viewers' faces?
It's really, it's kind of, they know that they're seeing something special, and nobody has watched more of these shows than me, so I have the unique advantage of having, when everybody else is watching the stage, I'm typically watching the crowd. You know, I'm standing by the stage looking back at the reaction. I want to make sure people are having fun, you know, how's it hitting them. And so when somebody comes through that makes the crowd react in that unique, like, whoa, what's going on? You know, like
eyes open,
their friends like pointing at the stage, you know, making sure everybody's paying attention. That is really, those are those magic moments that I'm like, yes, this is so cool. You know, we've had a lot of rock bands come through this past year. Southern rock, I would kind of classify it more as, and that sound and that vibe right now is really catching people off guard. And it's like, holy crap, this is amazing. How do these kids know how to play this music like this? How do they look like they're straight out of the 70s? You know, watching crowds respond to that, watching them respond to the kind of Americana-ish wave that you don't have to dress like a cowboy or sing songs like whatever to be in that country lane.
You can look hippie if you want with bell-bottom jeans. Lainey Wilson's a great example of that.
The songs are so good. The voice is so good. It doesn't need, who cares? You know,
and you tell when someone has it?
I think so. I mean, it's funny because I don't know what to do after I say, man, that person's really awesome. You know, that would be really cool if I could work with these people and take it to the next level. But I think that's also helpful in my position that I'm not the guy that's like, okay, you did great. Now let's go and sign this deal.
Sign this deal right now,
Yeah,
right here.
Let somebody else do that. But yeah, I think about another kid last year, Ben Goldsmith, who came through, and it was like he was 16 years old at the time, was in town for the summer, playing a couple gigs just around town, and he played Whiskey Jam. Somebody had recommended him to us that I trusted, and I was like, I mean, yeah, let's see what happens. Came in on a pretty slow night, and it was like the moth to the flame. Every person that could hear what was going on in that room was drawn to the front, and it was like, you just know when something is electric and different. On that level, you know, there'll be some nights where somebody's good that a bunch of people like. It's not a universal like in awe, but when you do have those rare once or twice a year maybe moments, it's enough to make me, you know, think about
Noted.
that as the standard of reaction.
Well, speaking of electric, I got someone on here that I think wants to talk to you as well. Let's see
Okay.
here.
Hi, Ward. This is Taylor Austin Dye, and my question to you is, what is one song that you wish that you had written?
There's a few recently. I guess the top of my mind is Devil Don't Know for Morgan Wallen. It's a new song off his new record. And this 36-song record is big enough to get lost in. And it's stylistically, it goes up and down like a roller coaster. You got deep hip-hop. You know, you have like really, I mean, they have a song in there that's crediting the hip-hop writers because they sampled the whole thing and then just added their own on top of it. You've got real country, same thing. You got a southern country rock song that's so southern country rock that they credited Greg Allman because they kind of tapped one of the lyrics from one of his songs, and you put those three guys together, and I think it was just a really magic moment. One of the guys had been saving the song for another one to write it with this person. They blend it together, and the guitar lick that came in and the darkness of the song, it really just struck me, especially on a project that big. It's like, this is the best for me.
Taylor Austin Dye is one of our alumnus here at the Heart of the Gulch, and you know about alumnus because you've had a lot of them in your time. But I mean, I think she just played Whiskey Jam last week. How did she do, and how did she rock it? I was sick at the time, I was upset that I didn't get to see that set. She's
doing awesome. She played one of our outdoor shows last last June, and kicked off the show. And
she kicked off our show because of that show.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I saw her in person wearing the Buc-ee's t-shirt, red hat. Yeah, exactly. Shout out to Buc-ee's and all that. But so I had her because I saw her from Whiskey Jam.
Oh, really?
And she was our first guest ever on the show because of your show.
That's awesome. That's the kind of stuff that. Perfect example. She was going first that night. We put together that lineup, and then one of the guys that was in charge of was the kind of co-presenter of the event. They were like, man, if you could, there's this girl that played one of our events recently. She was really awesome. We'd love to have her on, even if it's just at the beginning. I'm like, sure thing. We got room there. She can warm the crowd up. And so when the gates opened, she was the one playing as people filed in. I was like, man, I wish everybody had the big full blast crowd, but it is what it is. But you never know where the connection's going to be made. You know, you never know when that magic moment's going to come. And for her being on this show like that, if she had been later on, you might not have been. You might not have seen
lucky.
It. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, and it just goes to show how much Whiskey Jam is in the community.
Yeah,
just from that regard. So we got one more question here, and let's play it right here. Let's hear.
Ward. Hey. What would you do in an instance where one of your events was at over capacity?
It's tough, man. We try to accommodate everybody that we can, but by nature, I mean, some of these things that we do are just impossible. You know, Morgan Wallen filmed the video for Whiskey Glasses at a Whiskey Jam one night. Lady A came and played one night, and these are advertised events. Every year, our anniversary show, you've got, radio artists. The past 2 years, we've had the number one song. The artist responsible for the number one song has played that anniversary show in Winners, like in a little bar on Division. So you're gonna have a line down the street, and there's several events a year where it's just kind of a random Monday or Thursday. We have a phenomenal lineup that you have that line down the street, and there's just nothing you can do about it. You know, people have always said, "Hey, man, you should move to a bigger venue," but it's like until we have that every night for 6 months, or shoot, 6 weeks would be enough to think about it, but we don't, and I don't want to be too big for our britches. I don't want to lose the comfort of the smaller room that has different parts. You can fit a bunch of people in this whole building, but the nucleus of the room is this little wooden stage in this little room that is in front of it. I don't want to lose that soul.
But is it challenging to get these artists now that, you knew that are now at this point to come and do a show like that?
It kind of is. And I mean, we're in our 13th year. You can only ask favors, basically, only like even of friends so much.
Yeah.
And the reason that the normal show is perpetuated so cleanly is that there is a constant influx of talent, a constant refreshing of the talent pool in Nashville that we get to draw from. You'll have new people every month. This summer will be interesting. We're still the summer stuff is still up in the air because, like at what point does the model that we built expire? And what point do you go to okay, not trying to capitalize off this, honestly, the opposite, trying to do this more correctly. When do we say, okay, we want to make this a bigger, more robust event that is ticketed, that is planned, that is, promoted, marketed on a different level, that includes artists that you're not at the mercy of who's in town and who's available and willing that day. It's more like, okay, we're going to make the best, greatest event possible, and we're going to pay these artists, for the times that they've come in and gave us a little sampling of 3 or 4 songs for free, to keep the show free. There comes a time it's like, okay, that I don't want that to be our model forever.
Yeah.
It works for what we do on some things, but
almost unsustainable too, but it's just growth and
it really is. It's growing pains. As much as I enjoy the way that things are now, and the way that what we've established ourselves, the foundation that we built, that we exist on, I think evolution is, unavoidable and necessary.
Necessary.
It's like we just blend them together. Just staying creative. I don't think that people come in and say, man, this is boring. I've seen this same show 850 times. Like, no, you haven't. You've never seen the same show.
And speaking, I got 3 more questions here before we got to wrap up and see your day in the life.
Yeah.
But speaking of shows, you got your own show.
Yeah.
In Apple Music.
Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit.
They approached me in 2019, just in the middle of summer. It was like, hey, we're working on something. Would you like to come out to California and, just do some test readings? And I had no idea what they were talking about. It became apparent that they were going to be doing some sort of streaming service, something unique in the country music space, using very unique people. It's been an incredible addition to my personal and Whiskey Jam's overall mission, of connecting people, connecting artists and audiences, aiding in the discovery of new music. We're broadcast to 165 countries, and it's every single day playing artists that are some that obviously, like you got the Mirandas and the Eric Churches and the Morgans and Lukes that keep the lights on, but you got an opportunity to, hey, while we're at it, have you heard of Madeline Edwards? Do you know this song? Have you listened to this Brandon Ratcliffe record? This is absolutely a piece of art, and you're getting to share the things that we've been sharing from our stage to a small audience over a dozen years. We're now sharing to the world
in a different light.
And with all the resources you could imagine, the Apple's not going to do something halfway. That's been the most important thing about this. Like, we thought through the years at Whiskey Jam, like, man, it'd be cool if we had a radio show. And we went to a couple places, and they're like, yeah, you guys can come in and do like really late Sunday night, and it only cost you this much money. And we're like, that's not really what we're talking about. Like, we see this as an show, as a brand. The difference being in this case that Apple is not affiliated with Whiskey Jam. They just reached out to me because they're like, we need the people. It's a human run and curated and created
They knew what
platform.
you do. They knew how you do what you do well.
Yeah.
And obviously that has kept a Whiskey Jam going on for almost 13 years. And, and I don't know what it is too, but maybe it's also the voice. I don't know. As I'm listening right now, I think you do have a great voice for it. Yeah. And it's because I'm a little bit too animated in my voice, but you were it's easy to listen to. I find myself sitting right now, just listening to you talk. And I'm like, man, I can actually listen to this really well.
It's funny because I'd always thought I'd want to do radio, but when we got into it as we are now, I'm like, man, I feel kind of guilty because I didn't have any experience in radio and I didn't have any training in this. And what I could pick up from the team is they're like, that's the cool part. You know, we've got Ty Bentley, who has decades of experience in radio, and he sounds like it, and it gives that confidence and that comfort area for him.
One of my last questions here is 2023. We're in 2023. By the time this is out, it will be in the summer of 2023. What are you looking forward to in 2023?
This year has been crazy already. We are on the road with Old Dominion. As Whiskey Jam, we're opening up all their North American arena dates, and we've brought some of the artists that we've worked with through the years, Graylin James, Cassie Ashton, Frank Ray, to basically be the opening. Instead of one big opening act, there's three smaller ones, and that like typical Whiskey Jam style. You're getting a little sampling. You get 20 minutes of each of these artists, and it's been absolutely incredible to see the crowd reaction to artists that they don't know. And it took the trust level of the Old Dominion fan base, which I think is on a different level than most, to say, you know, these guys, our friends, the people we trust in Old Dominion, told us that this is something we would like, and they trusted Whiskey Jam to curate a good lineup. And it just worked out incredible. So that experience has been crazy. We're out with Luke Combs opening up, we have a tailgate party at all of his stadium shows for the year, which we did last year, just kind of learning, flying by the seat of our pants. But this year we have a little bit more experience, a little bit more direction, and a lot more shows. So we've been able to spread the love around. We have the same thing, 3 artists at each of those tailgate shows, everywhere from Boise to Tampa, and they're opening the gates to the I guess the property, where whatever stadium you're playing at much earlier, 2:00 in the afternoon. So you're like, okay, if you wanted to party all day, this is the way to do it. You know, when we come out, and Luke's fan base is very trusting. They trust him. He has trusted us to put these lineups together, and it creates that spirit of support that he has enjoyed from the Whiskey Jam stage, but also has the power now, like as just a
major artist,
influencer, you know, like it or not, term wise, he is able to influence a large amount of people and say, you know, a tweet about 49 Winchester from him or with the Wilder Blue is
next level.
Yeah.
It's not normal.
This guy likes that. I mean, wearing somebody's hat can change their career. And so having that stage and that endorsement from him and his team it's incredible. We're just getting started, but I'm looking forward to the entire year of that.
Well, I mean, that's what you mean is it's an amazing partnership.
Yeah.
And so speaking of that, so one thing that we do always on our show is we show your day in the life. Now, remember, this is going to be released in sometime in the summer.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you guys will definitely be doing another summer show. Whatever you want to show. If you want us to see you just going hard at the paper books of all these things, I can totally understand it. But the way we tee it off is you look straight into that camera right there. You say your name, say you're the owner of Whiskey Jam or whatever you want to say, and then say, this is how I walk the line. Just like Johnny Cash's song, Walk the Line. So like I said, I'll tee you off here. So I'm going to give you an applause and then look straight into that camera. You know what to say right there?
Yeah.
All right. So then let's do it. So in 3.
I'm Ward Guenther, founder and host of Whiskey Jam, and this is how I walk the line.
Hey, Ward.
workstation. This is, I tell my kids when I come home from work, they're like, "What'd you do today, Daddy?" I said, "I communicated." So that's all it is. It's just a bunch of communication. I've got one computer for a lot of my Whiskey Jam stuff. I've got another computer for my work at Apple. I've got my phone going all the time. I've got multiple headphones and chargers and this and that and hard drives. It's just all like sending of information. And we deal in kind of a non-stop business and schedule with the revolving Whiskey Jam events, and with my radio show, it's every single day. So it's I don't know, I like it. This is our 5th office. And it's funny because it's in the same building as our very first office. Like through this big building, there was a teeny little, I mean, it was a little bit bigger than a broom closet we started out of, my manager and I, and we're running everything out of it. Merchandise, all the events. I had a sofa. I was bartending at the time, so I would take naps every day. Like I'd get done working at 2 or 3 in the morning and be in the office at 9. And it doesn't stop. Like I said, when I'm in between artists at Whiskey Jam, I'm communicating with the next artist that's 2 down the line that's not here yet. You know, hey, we locked your keys in our car. You know, that never stops. I'm taking videos of the bands on stage. I have an idea for something that I want to do in 2 weeks from now. So, I mean, it's really, really helpful that everything is connected. You know, my notepads are connected to all this stuff. My ideas, my Dropbox of graphics are connected everywhere, so I can constantly work on things that I might have left a ball left in the air at the office. I can pick it back up at a show. My biggest, I guess, goal, challenge, struggle, good and bad words, is turning it off at home and finding that, you know, it's the time to spend with my family, and finding the courage, as silly as that sounds, to say, you know what, nothing's gonna happen tonight that can't be handled in the morning. And it's been a little bit like I've dialed it back like an hour at a time. I used to work till midnight, 1 in the morning regularly, and then it was like 11, and now we're just trying to say, you know what, you can check on this real quick, but then close the laptop. So I got a few more hours of daylight here working for Whiskey Jam, then I'm gonna head over to Apple, and then back to Whiskey Jam show tonight, and I will see you there.
Well, we're off to a fantastic start. Thanks to Country Now, thanks to Jared Papa. You missed out on a freaking party. It was amazing. We had Monday night was UTA takeover. Tyler Hubbard made his Whiskey Jam debut, finally close to the FGL circle in our Jam fam. And then Thursday night, huge show with WME and PBR. We had Justin Moore and Chris Cagle making their Whiskey Jam debuts, and it was really, really awesome. Especially, I mean, I love Justin Moore, huge, I mean, non-stop hits the whole time. Any amount of time between them would have been too long. Welcome back to the Whiskey Jam stage, y'all. Grace Lear.
How we doing, Whiskey Jam? I don't need a drink. I can buy my own. No, I don't want to dance. If the band starts playing some Vegas, the way that really get me in the mood. If I start,
We made the newspaper today. I don't know if anybody reads the newspaper. My friend Ralston is a newspaper kind of guy, and he was reading USA Today, and we made the list of things to do in Nashville. So this is a little bit of, they said this was a way to honky tonk without having to go downtown. So welcome, and you can honk your tonks till the cows come home tonight. We're excited to be here. Hope you are too. Enjoy the beverages tonight. It is a Monday night in Nashville, which means basically treat it like a Saturday night wherever you're from. But really the reason that Whiskey Jam exists specifically is it wasn't a place you could play your original music that was as fun and like as big a party atmosphere as we wanted. So that's why we're here. This is I think our 874th Whiskey Jam. So thanks for supporting us, and we'll keep on doing it as long as y'all keep on making music and coming out to watch it.